At 19 years old, Maya Torres stood in the wreckage of a barn everyone said should have been burned down decades ago, staring at a steel door that had just been revealed when the rotting floorboards collapsed beneath her feet, while her mother and stepbrother divided $4 million she'd been promised would pay for her education. 3 weeks earlier, her grandfather died, and everything she thought she knew about her family died with him. The call came on a Tuesday morning. Maya was in her dorm room, chemistry textbook open, when her mother's voice came through the phone. Flat. Businesslike. Your grandfather passed last night. Funeral's Friday. I'll text you the details. The line went dead before Maya could respond. She sat there holding the phone, numb. Her grandfather had raised her after her father died. He'd taught her to fish, to fix engines, to stand up when people tried to push her down. He'd promised her he'd make sure she could finish school, that she'd never have to worry. Now he was gone. The funeral was cold. Her mother stood at the front of the chapel in a designer black suit, dabbing at dry eyes with a tissue. Her stepbrother Derek stood beside her, checking his watch. Maya sat alone in the third row. No one turned to look at her. No one spoke to her. When it ended, her mother walked past her without a word. Derek smirked as he followed. 4 days later, Maya sat in a law office that smelled like expensive cologne and old paper while her future crumbled. The lawyer was a thin man with silver hair and a voice like gravel. He opened a folder and cleared his throat. This is the last will and testament of Samuel Torres, executed 8 weeks prior to his death. 8 weeks. Maya's stomach tightened. Her grandfather had been sick for months, but 8 weeks ago, he'd seemed stable. Why would he change everything then? The lawyer continued. The estate, valued at approximately $4.3 million, including the primary residence, investment portfolio, and business assets, is to be distributed as follows. He paused, looked at Maya's mother. 70% to his daughter, Victoria Brennan. Her mother's face didn't move. 30% to his step-grandson, Derek Brennan. Derek leaned back, grinning, and to his granddaughter, Maya Isabel Torres. The lawyer slid a single document across the table. The barn property located at 1804 Ridgeline Road. Maya stared at the deed. Her name was scrawled across it in her grandfather's shaky handwriting. That's it, she asked. Her voice cracked. The lawyer didn't meet her eyes. That's what the will stipulates. But he promised. He said he'd take care of my tuition. I'm halfway through my sophomore year. Her mother finally spoke. Her voice was ice over stone. He changed his mind. That doesn't make sense. 2 months ago, he told me, "You're an adult now, Maya. You're not entitled to anything." Maya turned to the lawyer. "Can I contest this?" He adjusted his glasses. "You could try, but the will was properly witnessed and notarized. Your grandfather was deemed of sound mind. You'd need significant proof of undue influence or fraud. I don't even know where that property is." Derek laughed. It was a cruel sound. It's an hour north in the middle of nowhere. Been abandoned for 30 years. Roofs caved in. No power, no water. Probably full of snakes. He looked at her with mock pity. "But hey, it's yours." Her mother stood, smoothing her skirt. "You have 2 weeks to vacate the house." Maya's heart stopped. What? The house was part of the estate. It belongs to us now. You're a tenant. 2 weeks. I'm your daughter. Her mother's eyes were empty. And you have property now. That's more than most people get. She picked up her purse and walked out. Derek followed, whistling. Maya tried to stay. She thought maybe her mother would relent. But on day 9, she came home to find her belongings in trash bags on the driveway. The locks had been changed. Her key didn't work. A note was taped to the door in her mother's handwriting. "You were warned." Maya sat on the curb until dark. Then she called a friend, then another. By the end of the week, she'd worn out every couch she could borrow. She withdrew from school, packed everything into 2 duffel bags, and took a Greyhound north to a place she'd never been to claim a property no one wanted. The bus dropped her at a gas station on Route 9. The clerk told her Ridge Line Road was about 4 miles east through the woods. Maya walked. It was early October. The trees were gold and red, but the beauty felt mocking. Her bags dug into her shoulders. Her feet blistered. By the time she saw the barn, the sun was setting and she was shaking with exhaustion. It looked like something from a horror movie. The structure was massive but rotting. The walls leaned inward. Half the roof had collapsed. The windows were shattered or missing entirely. Vines crawled up the sides like veins. There was a rusted chain on the double doors. Maya pulled the key from her pocket. Her hands trembled as she unlocked it. The chain fell away with a metallic clatter. She pulled the door open. It groaned. Inside was worse. The smell hit her first. Mildew, decay, something sour and old. The floor was covered in rotted hay and broken wood. Beams hung at dangerous angles from the ceiling. Holes in the roof let in fading light. There was no electricity, no running water, no heat. Maya dropped her bags and sank onto an overturned crate. She put her head in her hands and cried. Deep, shaking sobs that echoed off the broken walls. She cried until her throat was raw and her eyes burned. When she finally stopped, it was dark. She spent that first night curled in a corner, using her jacket as a blanket. She didn't sleep. She listened to the wind and the creaking wood and the sounds of things moving in the dark. In the morning, she walked into town. It was small. One main street. A diner, a hardware store, a post office. People stared as she passed. She walked into the hardware store. A man in his 60s stood behind the counter. He had weathered skin and kind eyes. "Help you?" he asked. Maya swallowed. "I need a flashlight. And maybe some water." He rang her up without comment. When she handed him the last of her cash, he looked at the total, then at her face. "You're staying out at the old Torres barn, aren't you?" She nodded. He was quiet for a moment. Then he reached under the counter and pulled out a battery lantern, a box of protein bars, and a pack of batteries. He added them to her bag. "You don't have to. I know." He slid the bag across. "Name's Frank. Your grandfather and I went to school together." Maya felt her throat tighten. "Thank you." He nodded. Then, quieter. He was a good man. This town didn't treat him right at the end. Why not? He wouldn't let anyone near that property. Folks got suspicious. Started talking. He met her eyes. But I knew him before all that. Whatever he was protecting, he thought it mattered. Maya went back to the barn and started cleaning. She worked from dawn until she couldn't see anymore. She cleared debris, patched holes with tarps Frank gave her, swept until her hands blistered. The work kept her from thinking. Days blurred. She had no phone service, no internet. She lived off protein bars and water from a stream. At night, she read by lantern light from old paperbacks she found in a wooden chest. But she started noticing things. There were marks on the floor in the northwest corner. Deep grooves, deliberate, like something heavy had been dragged over and over. She followed them with her flashlight. They led to a section of wall that sounded hollow when she knocked. And there were the birds, ravens. They gathered on the roof every evening at dusk, silent, watching. Her grandfather used to say ravens were drawn to secrets that they remembered. She started dreaming about him. The same dream every night. He was standing in the barn, pointing at the floor, saying the same thing over and over. "Look down, Mija. Look down." On her 17th day in the barn, the storm hit. It came fast. The sky went black. Wind screamed through the broken walls. Rain pounded the roof like fists. Maya huddled in her corner, wrapped in a tarp, holding the lantern. Thunder cracked so loud it shook her bones. And then she heard it. A deep, splintering crack. The floor gave way. A 6-foot section near the center collapsed inward. Wood exploded. Dust filled the air. Maya screamed and pressed herself against the wall, certain the whole structure would come down. But it didn't. When the dust settled, she crawled forward on her hands and knees. She held the lantern over the edge. There was a space underneath. Not a crawl space. A room. Concrete walls. And in the center, partially visible through the broken wood, was a steel hatch with a reinforced lock. Her grandfather's voice echoed in her mind. "Look down, Mija." She didn't move for a long time. Then she remembered something else he used to say, something he'd told her 100 times when she was young. The value of a thing isn't in how it looks. It's in what it holds. She thought it was just something grandfather said. Now she wasn't sure. She waited until morning. The rain stopped just before dawn. Maya climbed down through the broken floor. The concrete room was small, cold, clean. The hatch was industrial grade, heavy, untouched by rust despite the years. There was a keyhole, but she had no key. She ran her fingers over it. It was smooth, cold, pristine. She went back to town, found Frank at the hardware store, told him everything. His face went pale. "You need to be careful," he said. "Why?" He glanced around. The store was empty. He leaned closer. There were rumors, years ago, about money that went missing, about people who came asking questions about your grandfather and then stopped asking. What kind of people? Lawyers, government types, investigators. He paused. Your grandfather didn't just own that barn. He was hiding something. Frank gave her a bolt cutter and a pry bar. He didn't ask questions. Maya went back to the barn and cut through the lock. It took an hour. When it finally snapped, she pulled the hatch open. Cold air rushed out. There was a ladder. She climbed down. The room at the bottom was nothing like the barn above. It was pristine. Fluorescent lights flickered on, powered by some kind of backup system. The walls were lined with filing cabinets, plastic bins, and a small desk with a laptop that was still running. Maya opened the first cabinet. Inside were financial documents, dozens of them, hundreds, bank statements, wire transfers, offshore account records, shell company filings, all dated over the last 25 years. And on every single one, she saw the same two signatures, her mother's, and Derek's father, her mother's late husband. She pulled out another drawer. Loan documents, forged deeds, falsified tax records, evidence of systematic theft from her grandfather's construction business. Millions of dollars, siphoned off slowly, carefully, over decades. Maya sat down at the desk. Her hands were shaking. She opened one of the bins. Inside were mini cassette tapes, dozens of them, labeled by date. She found a player on the desk and pressed play on one from 3 years ago. Her mother's voice came through, clear and cold. He's getting suspicious. A male voice, Derek's father. Then we accelerate. What if he changes the will? He won't. And if he tries, we'll make sure he can't. The tape ended. Maya's stomach turned. She kept searching. She found medical records. Her grandfather's. Highlighted sections showed abnormal toxicology results from 2 years ago. Elevated levels of digoxin. A note in his handwriting in the margin. Tested my pills. Switched. Someone's trying to kill me. Maya couldn't breathe. And then she found the letter. It was in a sealed envelope on the desk. Her name was written across the front in her grandfather's handwriting. She opened it with trembling hands. My dear Maya, if you're reading this, I'm gone. And they did exactly what I knew they would. I'm sorry. I wanted to stop them before it came to this, but I ran out of time. Your mother and her husband have been stealing from me for over 20 years. I didn't see it at first. They were smart. But 5 years ago, I started noticing missing money, forged documents. I hired an investigator. He found everything. When I confronted them, they didn't deny it. They threatened me. 2 years ago, I got sick. I thought it was my heart. But then I started feeling worse after every meal your mother brought me. I had my medication tested. Someone had been replacing it, slowly poisoning me. I couldn't go to the police. They have connections, lawyers, judges. I'd be dead before anything stuck. So I built this. I documented everything, every crime, every lie, every transfer. It's all here. The barn was never worthless. It was a trap. I left it to you because I knew they'd ignore it. I knew they'd think they'd won. And I knew you were smart enough to look down. Finish what I started. Expose them. Take back what's yours. Remember, the value of a thing isn't in how it looks. It's in what it holds. I love you always. Abuelo. Maya read it 3 times. Then she folded it, put it back, and climbed out. She walked into town, found a payphone, and called the FBI field office number she found on a card tucked in the envelope. A man answered. She told him everything. He listened without interrupting. When she finished, there was a pause. "Stay exactly where you are," he said. "Don't touch anything else. Don't tell anyone. I'm sending a team now." His name was Agent Carver. He arrived 2 hours later with 3 other agents and a forensic accountant. They went into the vault. They photographed everything. They copied every file. When they came back up, Carver looked at her with something close to respect. "Your grandfather built a federal case," he said. "This is airtight. Can you arrest them? We can destroy them." He told her to stay away from the barn, said it wasn't safe. He put her in a motel in town and posted an agent outside her door. The next morning, she woke to pounding on the door. It was Carver. "Your mother and stepbrother just left the city. They're headed here." Maya's blood went cold. How do they know? "We don't know, but they're 40 minutes out." "What do I do?" "Stay here. We have people at the barn. If they show, we'll be ready." But Maya couldn't sit still. She had to see it. She slipped out the back of the motel and ran. She made it to the barn just as her mother's black SUV screeched into the clearing. Her mother got out first, face twisted with fury. Derek followed, scanning the area. And then they saw the federal vehicles, 4 black sedans. Agents everywhere. Carver standing near the barn entrance, badge visible. Her mother froze. Derek tried to run. He made it 10 feet before 2 agents tackled him. Her mother just stood there, staring at Maya. Her face was blank, empty, like every mask had finally fallen away. Carver walked over. "Victoria Brennan, you're under arrest for wire fraud, embezzlement, elder abuse, conspiracy to commit murder, and obstruction of justice." Her mother didn't resist. She let them cuff her. But as they led her to the car, she looked at Maya one last time. "You have no idea what you've just done to yourself." Maya's voice was steady. "I know exactly what I've done. The investigation took 4 months." Maya testified. So did Frank. So did the forensic accountant. So did the private investigator her grandfather had hired, who'd been waiting years for this. The evidence was overwhelming. Financial records, recorded conversations, medical proof of poisoning, her grandfather's letter. Derek tried to claim immunity, said he was a minor when it started. The prosecutor tore that apart. The trial lasted 7 weeks. Maya sat in the courtroom every day. She watched as they played the tapes, as the accountant walked through the stolen millions, as the toxicologist explained how digoxin poisoning works. When the verdict came in, Maya was holding Frank's hand. Guilty. On all counts. Derek got 16 years. Her mother got 28. After sentencing, Carver walked over to her outside the courthouse. "The estate's been frozen pending restitution," he said. "But there's a second will, filed with a different attorney 6 months before your grandfather died. The real one." He handed her a folder. Maya opened it. Everything had been left to her. The house, the accounts, the business assets, everything. "He knew," Carver said quietly. "He knew what they'd do. So, he protected you twice." Maya sold the house. She couldn't stand to live there, but she kept the barn. She rebuilt it from the ground up. New frame, new roof, solar panels, a well. She turned the vault below into a climate-controlled archive for her grandfather's documents. She planted wildflowers where the floor had collapsed. Frank helped. He came by almost every day. They worked in comfortable silence. And slowly, the barn became something beautiful. 2 years later, Maya stood in that same barn, now warm and filled with light, and opened the doors to the first meeting of the Torres Foundation for Elder Justice. 15 people filled the space, victims of financial abuse, lawyers offering pro bono help, investigators, advocates. She looked around at the faces and felt her grandfather's presence. She thought about what he taught her. The value of a thing isn't in how it looks. It's in what it holds. He'd held the truth. And he'd made sure she could finish what he started. If this story moved you, hit that like button and subscribe for more true justice stories. Share this with someone who needs to hear it and drop a comment
below.
Have you ever uncovered a truth that changed everything?